an Arab offered me 7,000 riyals for one night. I was married, yet my intentions changed, and I stayed at his house that night. The Arab had very poor eyesight, but when I stayed at his house that night, I was shocked because that Arab made me 8 times. I was living in Saudi Arabia with my husband. Neither of us was highly educated. My husband worked in a factory, but because he was not well educated, his salary was low. We struggled to make ends meet and remained grateful, eating whatever we could afford and going to sleep. But as time passed, financial difficulties became more severe. I consulted some women around me, and one woman told me that an Arab household needed a maid. The job was to wash dishes because other women already worked there and handled the cooking. The work seemed easy to me. However, I felt nervous about working in an Arab's house. Seeing my concern, she said, "Don't worry. The Arab is blind. The poor man spends all day sitting on a sofa. His wife passed away some time ago. Besides, he is quite old now. Who would marry him at this age?" The next day, I went with her to his house. The Arab turned out to be a very kind person. He offered me a good salary. When I told my husband about the job, he was very happy. He said that if both of us worked hard, we could save some money in addition to covering our expenses. Since I was free during the day, I finished all the household chores in the morning and then went to the Arab's house. He had a young daughter, around 10 years old. The other maids paid some attention to her, but after all who truly embraces someone else's child, seeing the family's circumstances, I took responsibility for much of the household. I stayed there from 10 a.m. until 9 p.m. every day. I was amazed at how kind-hearted the Arab was. He treated his employees with great respect and affection. The other mates gradually became jealous of me because the Arab treated me especially well. If anything went wrong, they would immediately complain to him, but he would silence them. I noticed that he loved his daughter deeply, yet the loss of his wife had broken him from within. He also had a permanent attendant who accompanied him everywhere, took him to the office, and brought him back home. Whenever he returned from work, the first thing he did was visit his daughter's room. Since I was usually with her, he would knock before entering. I would quickly sit properly, and only then would he open the door. He would hug his daughter and ask me whether she had been troublesome and whether she had eaten properly. One evening, as I was leaving, he asked me to wait. He took out his wallet and handed me 3,000 riyals. I was shocked. He already paid me a good salary, and 7,000 riyals was not a small amount. Looking at him in surprise, I asked why he was giving me the money. He smiled and said, "Take it. It will help you." I protested, saying that my salary was already enough, but he insisted. I accepted the money and put it in my purse. As I reached the door, he called me again and asked me not to tell the other employees that he had given me money. His request troubled me. That night, I could not stop thinking about it. Why had he given me money, and why did he want it kept secret? Eventually, I convinced myself that perhaps he appreciated my sincerity and hard work more than the others. A few days later, he tried to give me another 1,000 riyals. This time, I became suspicious. Why was he being so generous? I returned the money and asked why he kept giving me so much. He replied that I took excellent care of his daughter. I told him that caring for her was my duty and that I was already paid for my work. I refused the money and went home. The next day, I arrived to find that he had not gone to the office. He was sitting beside his daughter who had a fever. As soon as I entered, he spoke sternly. "You are late. My daughter has had a fever since morning." I checked the time and explained that I had arrived at my usual hour. He said, "The reason I was giving you extra money was so you would pay more attention to my daughter. She has no mother. That is why I hired you permanently." I immediately took the child into my arms. Soon, the driver brought a doctor to the house. It was clear that the Arab had enough money to call a doctor directly to his home. After the doctor left, I gave the child her medicine and stayed by her side. The Arab insisted that I not leave until she recovered. I spent the entire day caring for her, giving medicine, preparing soft food, and comforting her. By nightfall, I was exhausted. When the Arab returned, I asked permission to go home. He hesitated and then said that he needed a favor. He asked whether I could stay the night with his daughter because she had become very attached to me. I explained that my husband returned home at 9 p.m. and expected dinner. The Arab looked surprised. "Are you married?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. His expression changed, and for a moment, he seemed disappointed. Then he quickly changed the subject and asked me to seek my husband's permission. I called my husband and he agreed. I stayed the night and cared for the child By the next day, she was much better. As I prepared to leave, the Arab tried to hand me 3,000 riyals. Again, I refused. Why are you measuring my affection with money? I asked. She may not be my biological daughter, but I have always treated her as if she were. I left without taking the money. My husband and I had been married for 5 years, yet we had no children. We had visited doctors many times, but destiny had not granted us a child. Some people advised us to visit spiritual healers, while others recommended traditional remedies. I trusted none of them. I simply prayed to Allah, hoping that one day He would bless me with a child. Eventually, we moved to Saudi Arabia. Even after years of work, our circumstances had not improved much. My greatest wish remained the same, to become a mother. That was why I devoted myself completely to the Arab's daughter. I never saw her as part of a job. I poured all my maternal affection into caring for her. One day, I found the Arab upset. His cook had quit, and he was worried about who would manage the kitchen. He looked at me hopefully. I understood what he wanted, but I already had my own household and husband to care for. Still, I prepared eggs and bread for him and his daughter. The happiness on his face was unmistakable. That evening, around 11 p.m., he called me and urgently asked me to come to his house. I told my husband, but he became upset. Should I quit my job? He said. What does this Arab want from you? I suggested that perhaps his daughter was sick again, but my husband refused to let me go. I called the Arab back and explained that my husband would not allow it. He said that his regular attendant was on leave and that otherwise he